Welcome back. Well, as I say, the other developing story this afternoon after the Newzroom case, the EFF press conference now, the Justice Ministry confirming it's starting the process of trying to extradite both Atul Gupta and Rajesh Gupta from Dubai after confirming last night that they have been arrested there. At the same time, the ministry says it doesn't know where Ajay Gupta is. You know, of course, how the Guptas are accused of masterminding the state capture period. You can forget Dudazani Gupta living in their home and how much money was stolen from companies like Eskom and Transnet. So then, if the Guptas are extradited, if they go through a court process and they're held legally accountable, what impact would that have on corruption in our country now and in the future? Professor Zwelinzima Ndevu is the director at the School of Public Leadership at the University of Stellenbosch. Professor, good afternoon to you. We all know that even though the Guptas have lost their political power, or so it seems, there's still huge corruption in this country. How important would their prosecution be as a symbol in the fight against corruption?
Good evening, Stephen, and good evening to your listeners. Thank you for having me. I think this would be a big public confidence booster. We would know that the issue of state capture or corruption in the country has been centered around this family and the brothers. So if they are arrested and they are brought to the country to face criminal charges, this would signal that the wheel of justice is turning, no matter how slowly it is, but ultimately justice would be done, people will be held accountable for their actions. So it would be a very big a public booster. It would also mean that the other cases that would hinge on them would also be solved. So it's a very important step in the right direction.
I mean, I suppose you could argue that to clean up our politics, to understand what happened during the state capture era, you really do need prosecutions.
Yes, certainly. You need people to be held accountable. You need people to process within the justice system. And where possible, those resources that have been lost can be recovered. And you can only do that when you start by arresting the kingpins. And in this case, it is alleged that the Guptas were the kingpins or the mastermind of all this process. So when you bring them, you are able to connect these missing pieces of the puzzle that you need to deal with people that have actually enabled them to take government resources.
Professor, we see corruption in all sorts of places now, and I'm not just talking in the government sector. I mean, Oceana, the fishing company, yesterday fired their chief financial officer for wrongdoing. The Tongaat Hewlett scandal is utterly amazing. People were making money by sort of upping the value of sugarcane roots. You have Steinhoff, which, of course, you know, is the sort of scandal to end all scandals. I'm talking about a kind of culture of impunity that maybe started in our state and has spread certainly to our private sector. You could argue it was the other way around. Would this be an important way of saying there's no impunity for anyone, and as a result, the entire culture of corruption would change?
I think this is a step in the right direction in a sense that we have had a number of commissions of inquiry. We have had a number of allegations that we have been in the public domain. We have had investigations. We have had findings of acts of corruption that were not decisively dealt with. People would resign or would be asked to step down and they'd move to better positions elsewhere. So arresting people, prosecuting them, and finally having a conviction against them would then say that anybody who does something wrong in this country would get his time in court, would ultimately the law would take its course, and that person would be arrested. We have developed a new culture where in South Africa it is no longer seen as a serious offense for people to involve themselves in criminal activities. So if people are arrested, people are processed, and ultimately people serving time in prison, this would deter others from doing acts of this nature. So it would serve as a symbolic process that nobody would get away with doing acts of criminality in the country, no matter what form.
I think there's been a sort of sense of despair, Professor, for some time. You know, it seems our economic situation's been getting worse. People are very angry. And I think that anger must be listened to. I mean, I think we ignore that anger at our peril. I think it's very dangerous to ignore that anger. Could this make people feel less angry?
Yes. The fact that there is act of corruption and nothing happens even when there are people that are alleged to have their records, there's evidence of people doing corruption and nothing happens. People are justified to be angry. And when the law is not seen to be taking its course, people would then resort to other issues, which would mean public anger, which would be demonstrated by people taking the law into their own hands, as we see in communities happening. So that the fact that a lot of people have lost jobs, and some of them are a result of these corrupt activities. So that, in that sense, that anger is indeed justified or needs to be attended to, at least.
We know that leadership matters, and I sort of think of what happened in the United States with Donald Trump and the sort of corruption claims against him, a man who wouldn't reveal his taxes, the lies that he told. Lying seems to have become a much bigger part of American politics. In Britain, there have been similar claims against their Prime Minister, Boris Johnson. We now have a president who claims that he's against corruption, that he's cleaning up the state capture era, and yet we have the theft of the foreign currency from his farm, which he did not declare, and as we understand it, he did not declare to the Reserve Bank either. If we put all of this sort of thing together, it gets very complicated. But if we have a leader who claims to be against corruption, and then is, and I'll use this word, weakened, tarnished, perhaps is a better word, in this way, how significant is that?
This is very huge. It's a big blow to the character of the president and also to his stance on corruption, if indeed these allegations are tested and found to be true. So what is more worrying is that public trust is eroded when they don't see any transparency, when they see acts of criminality with impunity. In this instance, if these allegations are correct. So this would be a huge blow to the fight against corruption, would be a huge blow to the program of the president on clean governance. But also, we must not look at these issues in isolation to the ruling party's conference that is coming up in December, where I think many more allegations will come out as the wearing factors come closer to fighting towards the conference itself. So while it has eroded public trust, while it has casted suspicion on the president as a person and also his programs, but also we should not rule out that some of these will be politicking leading up to the conference of the ruling party.
If someone's accused of breaking the law, as he has been, what do you think is the right response for a leader? What should a leader do when they're accused of doing the wrong thing?
I think the first thing that we expect from a person of the caliber of President Cyril Ramaphosa is to come out clean, be transparent and honest. It might be that indeed something wrong, illegal happened in this farm, but he was not personally involved and not aware of it. So it is expected of him to come clean in that sense, and he has tried. I'm not sure whether indeed he has been telling the truth, but he has tried to, wherever he is in the public platform, to address this issue. That's what we expect, one. First, secondly, we expect the president to take us into his confidence in saying that I have not done anything wrong. I can prove that I have not done anything wrong. I will cooperate with any law enforcement agencies that would want to more information, that would be investigating this case. But it's also unprecedented that a person who lays a criminal charge against another individual go public on it, and when there is no clear public interest in this whole issue.
You're reminding us of sort of the importance of the politics, and I think that is important. So would you suggest then the president needs to answer questions? Sit down, do one of those awful press conferences where people like me throw as many questions as they can at you?
I certainly don't think that would actually help. I think what would help for me, even if it is a statement that is issued by the president, but it's more detailed. We don't get the generic statement that says the president is aware of these activities, there were no illegal activities, he played no role, as when people are brandishing footages of activities then, and all sorts of allegations, encroaching in other countries' securities and all sorts of things. So what we expect is of the president to really take the nation in its confidence, even if it is a special address to the nation.
We appear to be losing you there, Professor. I do apologize. Thank you, Professor. Zwelinzima Ndevu is the director of the School of Public Leadership at the University of Stellenbosch. Such an important story that's been developing this afternoon. Well,